topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the host and their guests, and not those of W4CS Radio, its employees, or affiliates. W4CS makes no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening to the Cancer Support Network on W4CS.com.
Hi everyone, it's Arti with Light Up Your Life, and today is Friday, and then we're in mid-July already. I don't know if you all are feeling like time is just flying. So hopefully you are able to really enjoy the weather, and I know many families have vacations planned, but just remember to even find humble joy in your surroundings and to cultivate our earth if you enjoy planting, or even if you're like me who has skipped a generation and who tries their green thumb. Always great to cultivate our land by putting in some gardening and flowers and whatnot. So real quick, before I introduce our guest, I have some exciting news. I haven't shared with you. I actually wrote a chapter in a book that's coming out, and it's actually getting ready to launch soon. We had a call yesterday, and it is a book it's called Finding Your Purpose, Dare to Be Authentic, Finding Your Purpose, and it's volume 6. And so I'm just a contributing author, but I'm really excited to share that story, and I will definitely show you the cover when it comes in the mail in a few weeks. And I just want to remind everyone, finding your purpose and finding your passion is a very humbling experience. It comes to us at very different times, as our guest speaker will tell us today. And I just want to remind you all that the goal when we bring on this show is to give you an avenue to remember that passion and joy and purpose, fulfilling what we were all designed to do, which is lead a joyful life, is kind of the reason I got into this. And so I'm really excited about our guest today, because it couldn't be more fitting to talk about purpose, because she's definitely an example of that. So Shefali Kalyani is the executive director and founder of WeCare charity, which is located up north. And I actually believe that I met her on Facebook, and Facebook can be a great connector of people, but I saw the great work that she was doing. And so I think I just wanted to reach out to her. So Shefali is the founding director of this beautiful charity that basically is providing services to our homeless population, and actually anyone in need of a meal. But it extends way beyond just even service in providing food. There's also, she helps, and her organization helps to run some drives at different times of the year, and also to be able to provide some services and some goods to my home country as well as hers, India. And so I'm very humbled to have her come on, and she's also going to share with us that she finds a lot of passion through service, not only through others, but she has found that her family is her big grounding, which I always think is so important. Her husband, Vinay, is always side by side with her doing this work as well, and her wonderful children. And so I'm not going to spend any more time going into her bio, because we're going to ask her more specific questions. So welcome, Shefali.
Thank you so much, Aarti. Thank you, Light Up Your Life, for having me and hosting me. I appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you. Shefali, why don't you just start with the beginning journey of time when because I know you immigrated here at the age of 12 to the United States. Can you just share kind of your upbringing and your story? Because I didn't share that in the bio. I actually just thought it'd be nice to hear your journey.
So I came here when I was 12 from Gujarat, Ahmedabad, India. And we came to Somerset, Fall River, which is where my Masi, my mother's sister, lived. And she sponsored us. So we all came at her house. And then my dad got a job in Lowell, Massachusetts. So we moved from Somerset, Fall River to, Lowell, Massachusetts. And I pretty much grew up there. We lived a couple of years in Woburn, Mass, but we were predominantly in Lowell. And, we were new immigrants with very little money, and the options for my parents were also limiting because they came much later in their life, unlike a lot of new immigrants who come right after college or for their masters or what have you. I grew up with lots of, at that time, the Indian population was very little. I'm talking back in 79. I was the only Indian student in my school, and all my friends were Americans. And I also got attracted to a lot of people who were similar lifestyle like me, who were limiting as far as finances were concerned. And I've actually had friends in projects. I've had friends grew up on welfare. One of the times that I remember going to a friend's house and they said, "We're going to a restaurant. Would you like to come with us?" And, I didn't know that was the restaurant until much later in life. I realized it was a soup kitchen. And I had gone with her, and I'm like, if it's a restaurant, why aren't we being served? Why are we taking food from a tray? And I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. And I was 12, 13 years old at the time. I was totally unaware of my surroundings. And then I went home and I told my parents, and they said it must have been something like this, a community soup kitchen or avenues such as that. But that's very young to be exposed to something like that. And at that time, I said, we'll do something when I grow up, maybe giving back to the community. My parents always talked about, giving back. My father's sister actually was very high into social work in India, my bua, my aunt. And she actually had 7 orphanage homes growing up. So I've been exposed to somewhat of that, but not as much because I was here. And, since then, I had something in my mind that I'll do something giving back. And that's how this whole process started. I went to Lowell High School and Lowell Middle Schools, graduated from University of Lowell, got married in Lowell, had my kids at Lowell General. So it's been a Lowell-based for me. And right now I live about 20 minutes away from Lowell, so it's not too far. So it's all been the same area. So that's how I started to give back. And my husband has been extremely supportive of the cause. And in fact, he's the one who said, let's start cooking for the homeless population. And that's how we got into this.
Wow, that's such an amazing journey. There's so many things you said that resonated. And first of all, I don't think I introduced our title for our show, but The Gift of Giving, Finding Passion and Service. And I love the word seva. It's become such a big part of my life. And I just see it in how you do your work. And it's not even work, right? You can't even call it work.
No, it's not. It's funny. We had gone on vacation not too long ago. And coming back, my daughter and my husband were, back to the grind. And I was the only one saying, yes, I'm going back because it's been a week and I missed it.
Yes. That's so funny you said that because I was on a vacation too. And I still found myself doing things because I was missing,
Yes.
You just know, but you love it so much, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So, yes. Do you mind sharing that first experience? You also had this kind of like epiphany moment for you where you were like, I really, because you were also in the business world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to share that where you made that little delicate shift where you decided, okay, I'm really going to start to delve into this more. So if you can share more of that journey.
So it started basically, I was in the corporate world. I worked for Fidelity. I worked for Liberty Mutual. I was a QA, testing software. And I did it. I did it, and I was good at what I did. It made the paycheck and it paid bills, but that was it. It was very raw for me. It was not a passion, and I when we decided that we're going to feed people, it was still wasn't a passion. I really didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I wanted to do something to give back. That was my only concern, just to give back to the community, and I started to make phone calls to soup kitchens, and most of the soup kitchens said to me that we're all set. We have a church coming in, we have so and so coming in, and to make a long story short, they basically said that we're all set right now. And I was very disheartened, thinking, here I am wanting to give, and there was no one to take. One fine day, a soup kitchen called me up, which is right here, local Nashville soup kitchen. They called me up and they said, we have a cancellation in the church. Would you like to come in and serve and cook? And it was for 200 people, and my jaw just pretty much dropped at that point. I said, I've never cooked for 200 people before. So I came home and I told my husband, we're going to cook for 200 people this coming Saturday. It was enough to turn his head. He said, we're going to do what? I said, we're going to cook for 200 people. I got few friends, and, I got the menu, and we made spaghetti, meatballs, garlic bread, and pasta, and garden salad for 200 people. Again, as I had mentioned to you earlier, cooking was fine. Serving was extremely, extremely humbling. I actually, halfway through, when I was serving, I had to leave, and I went in the back, and I actually vomited. I couldn't take it. I just felt so overwhelmed and so over passionate. I don't know the feelings. I can't put it in words, but I wanted to give up everything for them. That's the feeling I had. And the kitchen manager came running after me, making sure I was okay. And after the whole, serving was over, I was crying, actually. And he said to me, he gave me a hug, and he said, you know what, you'll be back. And I said, I don't know. This is a lot to take. I just feel very overwhelmed. He said to me something which has come over and over in my life. He said, if you feel this physically ill at somebody else's ailment, you'll come back to help them for more. And at that point, I didn't quite understand what he meant, but he was a wise man, and he's right. We fed our very first meal back in 2012 for 200 people. Fast forward 2021, we're feeding 4,000 people a month between New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And corporate world, it just seemed, and no offense to anybody, people are doing great. I had great people working with me and managers. It was fake to me. It was just fake world. It wasn't my world. It was not real for me. You did things to get ahead and whatnot. It was nothing that came from my heart. So again, to 2016, my husband and I decided, and I give him a lot of credit, that he said, why don't you just leave this and do what you love to do full time? And I left my job 2016. It was April, because we were waiting for my son to graduate from college in May, and I quit in April. And I told him, I said, you better graduate because I quit my work. And he said, yes, I am graduating in May. And 2016, I left my work to do this full time. And that's my story for how I got into this. And I wouldn't change it for the world. People say, how can you do this day in and day out? It's taxing. Some days it's very taxing. But you know what? This is life. This is reality. If somebody else's hard time or whatever, their life is taxing on you, well, you're only listening to their side of the story. You're not in that situation, so be grateful.
It's very seldom that I'm very silent, as people know. I'm silent because I'm absorbing everything you're saying. I listened to your story, and I think, there's so many people post-COVID that are trying to find ways. They do want to help. Yes. But you started this prior to COVID. And I hear you, and not to mock, I can say this to you, being South Asian. Sometimes our South Asian folks are so into status and making money, and for you know where I'm going with this.
Yes,
yes. It's also very much of a class thing and the things that we all talk about, possessions, but for you to step out and, generationally make this shift to say, I really want to follow my passion and I really want to do this service, even though at times it is very difficult, like you shared. I just think that's so inspiring.
Yeah, it is. I'll tell you, one of the reasons this is an all immigrant situation. People say that, like my own dad said, I didn't come 17,000 miles to do nothing in this country. Otherwise, I would have been in my own country if I really just wanted to be the way I was. I'm here because I want to make a change for myself, for my family, for my children, and to do better than what I was over there. And that's one of the reason mindsets that people come here. Education has always been big with Southeast Asians, especially Indians. There's no option. It's not, would you like to go to a college? It's which college would you like to go to? That's the difference. Having said that, I've been blessed with the community here in Boston and New Hampshire, and even as far as Connecticut, even New York, New Jersey. I have had so many people, especially during COVID, that came and helped us. Not so many volunteers also, but financial donation has been skyrocketed, and everybody wants to help. In the beginning of COVID, we had a little bit tough time naturally finding volunteers. What happened is all the shelters closed down, and we could not make food because we generally make cooked food and we drop off the shelter and we serve. Well, we support 21 shelters. And the shelters closed. And when I went to the shelter and they had closed, and I talked to the owners, and I'm like, what are they going to do? They said, there isn't anything right now. What can we do? And they were just standing there, people out on the streets. So we came up with the shelter folks and us that, how about we do bagged lunch? So we made, cold cut sandwich, or if people were vegetarians who were serving, they made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and we made, granola bars, and we put fruit cups, and we put a drink and napkin and whatnot, and we made a meal bag. Actually, it wasn't even a sandwich bag. We made a big meal bag. And we started serving, and I put it out on Facebook because I used to make 100, 200 bags on a daily basis. And it was just very, very overwhelming for us. So I put it on, my husband said, why don't you put it on social media? So I started to put on social media that this is what we're doing. And no word of lie, within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we stopped making sandwiches because we used to get over 1,000, 1,200 sandwiches a week at my house. People just took over because they didn't feel comfortable. First, they wanted to help, like you had mentioned earlier. They didn't feel comfortable going out and serving the community or the homeless folks because of COVID. But they could certainly make it and drop it off to my house with the mask on. And that was very convenient, and it was very safe. So I opened my doors, I pulled out my garage, cleaned out everything. We put a big sheet of, bed sheet on the floor, and people just came and dropped off sandwiches. And every single day I would put them in my car and I would go to the shelters with double mask on. We would have a table. We would put all the sandwich bags on the top of the table, and the people would just come and help themselves to a sandwich bag. And that's how we fed people. One lady actually came there one time. I remember this specific example. She just opened up the sandwich right in front of me. She says, do you mind? I said, no. And she opened up the sandwich and she inhaled that sandwich. She said, I hadn't eaten in 3 days. And she said, I have 2 kids at home and I have no food in the house. I gave her like maybe 7 sandwich bags that day because to take it home. But this was how dire the situation had gotten. Everybody was so scared and concerned. People forgot the homeless, and I really, till this day, I won't forget how she was that day, that lady. And we could help her, and I was happy that we helped her. Somebody donated McDonald's gift cards to me, and I gave that to people. It was to the community. It was outstanding. I give them standing ovation. The Indian community especially, they came forward and they helped. I got a check, and I know who it was from. They just wrote a check for me just like that for, $3,000, $5,000, and said, go feed the hungry. And it just kept coming. And there were times where I was wondering, like, oh, shoot, we ran up our grocery bills. Now what? And I would just get a check in mail. So it's been God sent, and it's been, I believe in these signs, and I'm a little spiritual person myself. So it just kept coming, and I kept feeding, and it worked out. It worked out. Now the shelters are open, volunteers are coming back, those who used to cook, and things are starting to go back to the way it was, and not still 100%, but I would say good 80% is back to normal. But yeah, it was just amazing experience. We made 35,000 sandwich bags in 2 months or 2.5 months time. Then we stopped counting. We just couldn't keep up. So, it was amazing.
That is, and you remind of that idea behind grassroots community organization. It does come down to local community grassroots, which you're doing, and then for you to see that outpouring.
Yes,
that was very touching.
It was very, and a lot of people want to help, like you said, and a lot of people feel like, what can I do? But they forget that, you can stay in your own house and you can still help. And it doesn't have to be financial. You can help making sandwiches. You can help, people, even now, what they do is they don't feel comfortable coming to the shelter. They cook pasta, meatballs, and whatever I tell them, they cook and they bring it to my house. And all I got to do is drop it off at the shelter and serve. And so people help in any which way they can. We charge $150 to feed a shelter for 100 people, and people have been sponsoring for their birthdays and spouses' birthdays and kids' birthdays, anniversaries. Unfortunately, when somebody passes away, we feed people on the 12th or 13th day. I've had people, all kinds of sponsorships that go on, and it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing.
That's wonderful. You also talked a lot about adaptability during COVID. You literally had to shift how you did things in an instant, and you didn't. Again, you're right there. I think a lot of people had forgotten what it must have been like for someone who is on the streets, right? Because everybody became in lockdown, and so they weren't leaving. And then the fear, right? We had even our first responders who were only in that one location, or if they. So I do think you're absolutely 100% when we realized that we had a population of people that had been forgotten in this ordeal.
Yes, absolutely, and people were afraid of it. Was almost, you don't catch COVID by being next to somebody, but people took it into that sense. The fear had gotten so deep and so far into people that they were afraid to even come out of their houses, let alone give food to the homeless. We also donated masks, I should tell you. I didn't mean to forget that part. We had a wonderful person. Her name is Jagruti Patel, and she's now part of my board as well. But she and her crew in Windham, New Hampshire, which is next town from me, they made over 5,000 masks, but we took about 600-700 masks from her, and she donated it to us. So along with the sandwich, you would give a mask to a person. And these are cloth masks, so they could keep it with them, and it doesn't, it's not one-time use. Right. So we donated. And masks were also at that time scarcity. We didn't have any. So we donated that as well. So we did that. Also, along the lines of donating food, I also own a food pantry here in Salem, New Hampshire. And oh my goodness, the lines were literally out the door, because people just, a lot of people just didn't have anything. And at one point, I kind of looked at the lines and said, how am my little pantry going to take care of so many people? But we ended up doing it. We got donations. We used to go to find cheapest grocery stores, Aldi's, not even Market Basket. We used to go to Aldi's at that time. Why? Because eggs were 98 cents a dozen versus $1.39. We were counting pennies to that point, and we actually had volunteers go to 2 different stores of Aldi's and find as much as we can, and we used to, nourish our pantry and feed the people. We had one Indian donor maybe this is 3 years ago, I may be wrong, but she is a big Shiva Bhakt, and she said, rather than buying milk and donating it to a temple and pouring it onto the idol, she actually donates every single week milk for every single person who walks in my pantry. And she does it online via Instacart, or she did it by Walmart online, and we would go pick it up. And every single week we have milk from her. So during the COVID time, the need went up, but she kept up with us, and we have been very blessed with that. We also helped India during COVID. There is a place actually in India called Dharampur. It's in Gujarat, and we supported the patients of Dharampur. We used to feed people there anyway on regular basis, but with COVID, it just got so bad over there that we feed about 200 people, even to this day, in the COVID ward in India, with the fresh cooked meals with the volunteers. So we've been doing that. We send them 10,000 masks to India. The N95 masks, we had a donation here from a company, and we send it to them. And they got it, and they've been using it, and it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. So the donations have kept coming, and it's been a blessing.
Yes, I hear that. I hear you talking a lot about even at times where you were worried and the signs came in, and they just it becomes so humbling to know that when you have a passion and a vision, that other people can also be part of it, right?
Yes. And there are a lot of times where I get stuck and I would have to find an answer to something, and the first person I would go to is my board of directors. I have the most beautiful, touch wood, and I don't want to jinx it, the most wonderful board of directors, very, very compassionate, and they're all with the same idea as mine. So it makes my life a lot easier. I'm not convincing anybody of anything. I just put it out there and it gets done. And they are, they're always looking out for WeCare charity to make sure that we're following the guidelines and the protocols and all the other blah, blah, blah that I'm not very comfortable with. But they've got my back, and I know that, and I'm very grateful to them for that as well.
Yes, Shefali, that's so true. I mean, you do have to have a team that looks out to make sure you're following X, Y, and Z when you are someone that's like,
Yes,
really
because
important.
I'll be honest with you, I'm a giver. I don't like to say no to anybody. But sometimes if it's outside our scope, I can't say yes. I have to check with them. So they've also gotten into a habit, to get into a habit of checking with them. So I don't open my mouth every time. Sure, I'll help you. And it's like, no, we can't. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yes.
So
yes, you do have to have checks and balances and everything.
Yes,
it comes down to always having support, right?
Yes, and they know my mindset, so it's easier to work with them. We're 8 of us on the board, and they're wonderful people. And I just wanted to make sure I said that. It's a blessing having them.
Absolutely, as a team. Shefali, can we switch gears a little bit and talk about there's a lot of misconceptions, misinformation about our homeless population, our community.
Yes.
You go out and serve, you go out and do things. There's a lot of misconception. You'll see a lot of people who believe when there's someone with a sign that's just asking for some food or money. Look at these panhandlers. Oh, why can't they go to a service provider? We have these types of thoughts that people have. Right?
Yes.
Then also the fact that if I go out in this certain community, then I'm the fear of robbery, or you know what I'm getting at.
Yes. Yes.
Shefali, can you please address with us how do you work? I mean, how do you encourage people to kind of shed the layers of fear?
So a few things. I was cooking one time at a soup kitchen, and I had a volunteer. I get new volunteers every month because somebody wants to come in and help. So she had a question. She says to me, how do you know that everybody who is in need are the only ones going to eat here? How do you know somebody who has food at home would not come to the soup kitchen and eat for free.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to her was, would you? Would you do that? Would you come to a soup kitchen and eat for free, even if you had food at home? She said, oh, absolutely not. I said, then what makes you think others would? That's one thing. That's one thing in mind you have to keep. When you start to do charity, like I have been for 10 years, it's an 80-20 rule. And I've mentioned this many times on Facebook. As long as 80% of the people are getting what they need, 20% of the people may or may not take advantage of the fact, okay? You can't stop doing charity because of those 20% or even 15% or even 10% for that matter. One of the biggest myths out there, and it's not 100% true, which is, all the panhandlers are drug addicts or they're alcoholics. Yes, drugs and alcohol do run in this thing, but that's absolutely not true. I have met so many people. I've met engineers who have been, I've met an aviation engineer, and I blog, I write about these incidences when I meet people and I talk to them. One of the biggest reason people, of course, they fall into drugs, don't get me wrong, but one of the biggest reasons that people have become homeless has been insurance, and it's not been drugs. Okay, they've gotten sick. They don't have insurance, or insurance stops paying, and they have to run the bill. The bill goes so high. Managing money is not their forte. They skip paying, or the interest rate goes skyrocketed. They have to sell their house. Many of them don't even have houses. They're renting apartments. They can't make the rent. I just had posted about a woman who talked to me, who is she's at the thin hairline of losing her house because she has a cancer, and her husband, and there she has 6 kids, and her husband is working 2-3 jobs, but there's no one to take care of the kids right now because she can't. She's just not physically able to take care of the kids. She's home, but it's not possible for her. She's getting support from the church, people coming in and taking care of the kids, taking turns. They can't make the rent. They can't meet the rent because all the bills are so, they're piling high. There's no one to pay them except for her poor husband who works 3 jobs. And these are not professionals. These are working, as a dishwasher at one location and as a server at another. So they're making minimum wage, and it's just not happening. If you're working $12, $15 an hour, which is still not many places offering that much money, you can't possibly make this. So they're about to lose home. Now, what happens is, in this couple's case, if they lose home, all her 6 kids, they would lose them because you can't have kids on the street. They'll end up at children's homes. Mm-hmm. And if they end up at children's homes, the chances of them coming out are very, very skim. It's going to take a long time for this family to come out. So I did a fund drive for her, and we collected a good amount of money, and they're okay for now. But I can't help her with cancer, but we can help her with this. This is the prime reason why people become homeless, not because they're drug addicts and they're alcoholics and they're no good, and people have all kinds of judgmental issues on them. It's easier, remember, not us, not so many Southeast Asians, but most Americans who are working 9-to-5 jobs as a dishwasher or as a server, they're 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless. Because most Americans here, at least this caliber of people, they work paycheck to paycheck. They don't have savings. So when some calamity hits, they don't know how to handle it. And they're not financially strong. There's no help. So it's easier said than done that, they're all alcoholics. I had a woman who came to my food pantry, and she asked me the same thing. How do you know that everybody is making a certain amount of money? I showed her the form. We have to fill out a form for every new person that comes in. And they're making $500, $800 a week. Now they have to pay rent. They have to buy groceries. So it's either pay rent or eat. So these are the reasons why we have food pantry. So, most people don't ask me such questions because it infuriates me, and I get a little bit, it's like, you have so much, can't you share? But that's just me. It's a road to hell for a lot of these homeless people. And now what's happening in a lot of places like Manchester, New Hampshire, or even Lawrence, Massachusetts here, the government, the city is actually evacuating them from where they are. So they have no place to go. They come in and they destroy their tents because they want them off their property. They have nowhere to go. Shelters are full. So it's like, where are they supposed to go? That's not our problem. Just get off the property. And that's what, there's been a lot of people going to like a rally, and I'm not a rally person, so I don't go. I just feed people. But I've been going there and I've been feeding people. I actually feed them on streets since last March. I go on Lowell and I go to Manchester and I feed the homeless on the streets. I bring food in my van, and we go there. And I open up my trunk and I just say, hey, anybody hungry? And woof, a lot of people would come in, and I would feed them. But that's what it is. It's a lot of myths out there and a lot of judgment calls. And just because you're not in that situation, remember, for most people, they're a couple of paychecks away. You don't know, so don't don't be assuming stuff.
Shefali, that's why I wanted it to come out of you. You deal with, you are in this every day, and you are just absolutely 100% where the judgment comes in, right? People decide that yes, a lot of people that I even know, they just drugged up, or that's the alcohol, or they're going to buy, alcohol with this money if you give money. But the thing is, at the same time, I'm so glad you brought up the 80-20 rule, because it does apply to so much of life. We cannot live in the idea behind how many people will do things the wrong way versus the right, whatever you want to call it, right?
Absolutely.
I also smiled when you use the word, I just serve people. And I chuckled to myself, because actually, Shefali, for those who are listening, and for me, food and serving are like, you think about mothers and how a lot of mothers who may not even like to cook, but they do out of the joy of seeing their family so for you to serve from your heart. And so that's why I was telling you, it is not just cooking. I mean, you're just passing. I mean, you are literally sharing your heart and your soul when you are cooking and providing these services, and then finding ways for your community and for this outreach in India. It's just so beautiful to hear you speak about all this.
People on streets call me Ma because they don't know my name. And I'm not the most comfortable giving out my name to people, because you never know. So you have to be careful as well. So I just tell them, they ask me. Sometimes if they ask me, I tell them my name. But if they don't ask me, they just call me Ma, just random. Hey, Ma, wait up, I'm coming for the food. And I'll hold my truck and I'll hold my my car, and I'll just wait until there. And you know what happens? One of the most beautiful things is a couple of places I go to, especially in Lowell, Mass. I go to this place and I pull up, and the homeless folks are already there waiting, and I try not to call them homeless. I try to call them people experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
And they will wait, and I would come there. And there's a policeman who works nearby, and he very casually will just come and he'll stand maybe, 20, 30 feet away from me, and he'll just stand there. He won't do anything. He won't talk to anybody. He won't do anything. So one time, my very first time, I was a little bit nervous because I hadn't done that before, just openly like that on the streets. And he came and he just stopped there. And after everybody had gone, I asked him, I said, thank you for being here. I said, is there a problem if I come here? He said, absolutely not. He said, just sometimes if I'm here, I'll stand here because my presence alone will make sure that there is nothing that happens. They'll form a line. They'll behave. Sometimes people get rowdy because they're hungry, or they just get excited, or what have you. And that was a couple of times ago. And then he stopped coming. And I've never had a problem. I've had people stand in line. They'll help somebody else who's with the cane. They will go all the way to somebody who is in a wheelchair. They will go and give food to them from my car. I mean, they've been the nicest people to serve, and they all call me Mom. and it's been a blessing. I absolutely love it. I actually like it more than serving at a shelter, which is a little bit restrictive. Here, they tell me their story. I met a guy who came from Puerto Rico with his mom, and his mom, because of COVID, passed away, and he has no money. He wants to go back to Puerto Rico. His father is in Puerto Rico. His siblings are there. He's working here in Lowell as a dishwasher, and he said he hardly makes any money for the rent. He lives in a shelter because he can't even afford a place. And he said that once someday I'll have enough money and I'll go back to Puerto Rico, but he's holding on to that dream. He's not a drug addict. He's homeless. So there are so many different stories and so many people that I meet that I feel, it's a myth. Just because few are like that, not everyone is. And you got to look at every case individually.
Absolutely. And Shefali, everybody has a story. Everybody has a story, and we just don't know what their story is.
Exactly. Yes, I agree.
And just to remind everyone, poverty and chronic illness go hand in hand. So what you brought up was a lot of medical crisis do lead a lot of folks into going into, they might have even been middle class and they come into a different bracket. There's a whole life shift that happens when chronic illness comes into play, and insurance and losing a job. And you've heard those stories. We've heard a lot of folks during COVID go from different brackets. And what I'm trying to get at is you never know. And so the judgment, I hope our viewers and listeners can take away that. And Shefali, thank you for bringing up the example. For you, you still have boundaries in place to keep you safe. And in your example, you just said, I don't always share my name. I look at the situation. So you trust your gut is what I hear you say.
Yes, absolutely. You got to be smart about it,
Yes. So if everyone can understand that you find your ways to serve the best way that you can, well, always, like you said, being smart about it too.
Yes, absolutely. Because, I'll be honest with you, weapons are also easily accessible. Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful. I don't always take people with me, only the ones that I know very well, because we have a liability issue too, being a nonprofit organization. Yes. Some people get all bent out of shape if they're swearing on the street. I'm like, hey, it's a street. And you're dealing with the type of people you're dealing with. Of course they're going to swear. You got to deal with it. But some volunteers get very upset. So I try to be very careful and cautious who I take with me. Everyone is not welcome, because they can more than welcome at the shelter, but not on the open streets because of liability issues. So I tend to go generally by myself, or maybe I have a good friend who I would bring with me, who I'm very comfortable with, but not everybody. Yes. So that's the reason, especially on the streets.
Yes. So you're just accounting for how to look at things, but you're saying, I'm not going to stop doing this. I just have to find what fits, right?
Absolutely. I was invited in Manchester, and they contacted me on Facebook. I don't even know how they got my number, but somebody mentioned to me that there is a place in Manchester, and I'm not allowed to say the name out loud and on air, there's a camp for homeless. And they're hiding from the police, because otherwise if the police will find out, they will destroy the camp. Mm-hmm. So it was really in the wooded area, and I had never been there. I took my son, he's in his 20s. So I said, come with me, and just to be on the safe side. But we had to park the car in the woods, and then we had a small road, that walking distance that we had to take. They had tables set up, and they had about 80 families who were there. And we brought food to them, and we brought, it wasn't elegant, but whatever we could cook, we brought it for them. And that was the first meal they ate in a day and a half. So this is the kind of stuff we're dealing with, and
it's all real. These are real stories, right?
These are real stories. These are real families.
They're real families. These are real people.
Yep, absolutely.
I think people forget this is, even though we are a first world nation, we face poverty like no other also. And we need to start accounting for the fact that this country has a lot of work to do to take care of our low income and those folks who are on the streets, who are often displaced. And we didn't even bring up how many of them are former military who have served this country.
Lots of veterans. I worked with one of the veterans guys at on the street. Actually, he was ready to sell his he got a badge. It was purple. What is it? The purple badge that the government gives out for your bravery. He said, "What good is this if I haven't eaten in 2 days?" And I told him, "Don't sell it." A Purple Heart, that's what it was. It was a Purple Heart badge that the president actually gave it to him. Obama gave it to him, and he showed me a picture of it. And he was in a wheelchair, and he said, "Yeah, I haven't eaten in 2 days. What good is this badge and this thing?" So this is the kind of also, there are lots of veterans organizations ready for help, but lots of them are unable to. They have pride issues too. They don't go because of pride, and organizations can't help you if you don't go. I try to convince them of this, but they're like, "You know what, we'll figure it out, we'll manage," but they're unable to. So that's
There's
another issue.
There's a lot of pieces involved when the seeking of
Yes.
services
Yes.
and help, and how, and that's where, coming back to grassroots, where we more and more organizations are finding they need to be going to the community versus having people. It's just not, the formula is not working for everyone, right?
Right.
A huge population is missing where we have to go to that setting and provide, for sure.
Absolutely.
Shefali, we have a few minutes left. Can you please share with us how your kids are involved with all the work? How do they feel about the work that you and your husband do at the organization?
They absolutely love it. Actually, it was my son who came up with the title WeCare Charity.
That's beautiful.
Because he asked me, they're grown children right now. They're in their mid-20s. So they would ask me, "Well, why do you want to do this?" And I said, "Because I care." So he said, "Well, how about WeCare?" And that's how WeCare Charity was born. And they have come to the soup kitchen. I started this when they were still in high school. So, my daughter had already just started college, and my son was in 10th grade when I started this. And they've come to the soup kitchen. They've sorted sandwiches. They've made sandwiches. They've went and got stuff for me. So they are very helpful, but having them help me was not an option. So I just made them do what I needed to do, and they did it. My backbone is my husband, and he goes every fourth Saturday of Nashua Soup Kitchen, and he'll cook for 250 people without even blinking an eye. And he has helpers too. Don't get me wrong. It's just not me and him. We have incredible amount of volunteers and helpers who help us, but we still have to start up in the morning. And every morning I get up, I thank God that I'm alive, and then what to do today, who can I help today? And that's how our day starts. And it's been a blessing having him and my kids in the process. So yeah.
I love when you just know when that service that you provide, also your own family, and it's just when they're involved, is such a beautiful thing.
Yes,
Shefali,
absolutely.
What would you like to leave our audience with today, with some parting thoughts?
Well, one of the things that people always tell me, that even when they serve once in a while, this still isn't like India. People in India need so much help. People in India this, people in India that. Well, you know what? We're not in India. We're here, and we can help here. Our hearts can go there. We can help them there financially. But as far as working with your hands, working with your heart, you can't go there and help. You have to be here. So if you want to serve, it doesn't matter where you are and who you are with, you can still serve. So let's stick together. Let's work together. Let's serve as many as possible without any judgment. And life would be great.
Thank you, Shefali. Those are beautiful words, as is this whole interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciated it. This was a great interview. I loved talking with you, and thank you again.
Thank you. Everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Light Up Your Life. And I think Shefali just reminded, when you work from your heart and when you work with alignment with your mind, body, spirit, the true beauty of service is like no other.
Absolutely.
Have a wonderful week ahead, everyone.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Love and light to all of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.